Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Practical Reefer. My name's Mark. Now this is week 10 of my 20-gallon Budget Nano reef tank build. So it's very much a personal tank for me that I decided to get back into reefing. I did buy myself a 50-gallon second-hand sumped tank, which I'm not able to set up just yet because I'm making some changes to my house. So decided to go with a home office build and decided to keep it quite simple, and ended up kind of being a budget build. So when I was piecing all the different bits I would need for it, there's a lot of different kit which you maybe don't realise as a new reefer, and even myself, having kept a reef tank before, there was a lot of things that I was like, oh, I need to get that, I need to get that, and I spent a lot of time researching it, so decided to put it all together as a build and sort of document it. I'll just see if I can get a slightly better view of the tank with a bit of a filter on there and get my face out of the way. So that's the tank there with the filters on. This is just the standard lights that I've got on it, the par 38s that I'm using. So I mean, I've had the tank up and running for a good few weeks now. I've got clownfish in there, they're nice and healthy. I've got some corals on the go, and this is me just kind of starting my journey. But what I'll be documenting today is all the kit that I've put into this build so far, and so we'll start looking at it now. I've actually just done it as a PowerPoint, and I've got like images of everything that I've bought, and I've listed it all out on a table as well, just so everyone can see. What you can do with this video, you could go out and buy all the same kit that I bought, and doing it exactly the same way, or you could use this video as more of a checklist of, I need a tank, I need filters, I need heaters, I need a thermometer, I need a fish net, I need food, different things. So there's a lot of stuff included in there. Probably one or two wee things that I've missed, but I think I've covered the bulk of what any new reefer would need from scratch to get them started, excluding things like the stand. I've built a hood for my personal tank, and then it's like your fish, your cleanup crew and corals, because that all becomes personal choice. But we'll start going through the pricing for the tank now, and I'll let you see it.
So everyone, here we are, the 20-gallon Budget Nano reef tank build, and again, it's everything a beginner needs to run a reef tank for a year for just £500. So it's a personal build to me, but I think it kind of covers everything someone would need. So again, you could follow this, by the script and buy all the same kit I did, or you could use this as a sort of checklist of, I need a tank, I need a heater, I need a filter, and go through that list of things that I've bought for my tank, and you could go off and buy different brands or things like that. And you can chop and change and do whatever you would like to do with your own tank. Obviously, it's personal to you. And again, you might decide you want to do a 4-foot tank. But this just gives you an idea of, okay, I need this, I need that, and different things. And one thing I would say as well, about a third of the cost of this build, just slightly over a third, is not actually equipment that is going into the tank itself. So when you think about that, so basically the inspiration for this came from, I was wanting to get back into reefing. I bought a 50-gallon second-hand tank, but I'm doing some stuff to my house, so I'm not going to set that up and then have to move it back again. So I looked at the Aquel, the Nano Reef Duo that they've got. It's a great looking little tank. It's got a cracking, really big hang on back filter where you can get lots of media into. But it's your only, you could add a Wavemaker as well. If anything goes wrong with that filter in my head, you're in a bad place. And the light, I wasn't 100%. The light is not the best. I've seen one mention of it slowly growing coral on like Reddit or something like that when I went scouring the internet. The other ones, the Fluval Evo 13.5, they're great little tanks, got a nice light on them. They'll absolutely grow soft corals, and loads of people have got some beautiful ones out there. I don't really like that back filter chamber. For me, the water should be going all the way down through that first chamber on the right hand side there, then shooting over to the middle chamber, up through that, and then overflowing into the return. So you kind of use, for me, I would have my, my coarse, medium, fine, and then biological in the middle. I find that chamber a bit weird. And again, if that pump ever failed, like any other all-in-one, now this is me just picking at things. The pumps last for years, but if it ever did go wrong or something wasn't quite right, then your chamber's cut off. So for me, doing a sort of budget build, I thought, if I put 2 hang-on backs in the back of the tank, I have that redundancy that if anything ever went wrong with them for whatever reason, I've got 2 there, so there will always be a filter running. So I've got that kind of redundancy. It's the same if you had a sump. You've only got one return pump, and I think BRS put the fear of failure into me. So Obviously, if you buy good quality kit, then it's going to last longer, but at some point it will fail. So it's just something to watch out for. And I think as well that, so it was the kind of cost per gallon. I tried to price something very similar to what I've got now as a 10 gallon. The closest sort of off the shelf tank's like a 12, like 54 litre. It's like a 60 by 30 by 30. And it maybe saved maybe 70 to 100 pounds by, you know, a bit less rock, a bit less sand, you know, a little bit less equipment, but you weren't saving a huge amount. And then your kind of cost per gallon started to shoot up. So you'd maybe save, you know, 70 to 100 pounds, but the cost per gallon was closer to like 36 pounds per gallon. Whereas in my 20 gallon, I'm sitting about 25 pounds per gallon in terms of my cost that I'm putting into the general setup. And that was the same with these sort of tanks. They're great. They're really good looking though as well. So there's a little bit of thing in that. Whereas these are maybe a sort of sleeker overall look. So, you know, you're paying for that, but then you're paying a little bit more to have that smaller tank, that smaller form. So it's up to yourselves. That's what I've done. And again, the 20 gallon gives me a bit more room in terms of stability of the tank, and more place for corals, slightly more fish. So yeah, I feel it gives me a bit more options, and I'm quite happy with the size. That's what I decided to go for. So I'll try and be quick. The next half a dozen items were all bought off All Pond Solutions. Now they were bought in All Pond Solutions pretty regularly. I was looking at this for months before I bought a lot of this stuff, and time again, in the second half of 2020, there was like 10% sales on All Pond Solutions. I'm sure I've seen like 3 or 4, and the whole of December and the whole of January 2021. There was 10% off. So that's how I'm basing a couple of these prices on. It's only a £16 saving overall, so it's not, you know, the build doesn't totally hinge on it, but it's just to make you aware that I've included for that. So the 90 litre, the 60 centimetre by 40 by 40, a rimless aquarium that we've got there, the tank. So I bought it for £67.50 when it was £75, so it's 10% off. After New Year / Brexit, it's now £90 or £89.99. So you're talking £81 when they've got a sale on. And I think that's well, like I researched this for months, so I had a bit of patience in terms of when I was going to buy the kit. And then when I saw they had the sale on, I kind of just made my mind up and went for it and bought a lot of the kit. So we're talking £81 for the tank. I've used 2 of the hang-on back filters. So you've got them there. They come with the sponges in there. They also come with a carbon and a floss pad, but we'll not be using, well, we will use them at some point, but we won't be replenishing them using the same cartridges because they're not that cheap. So these are about £12 each, £23.98 for the 2 or £21.58 with the discount. I use the surface skimmer on one of these. Absolutely great idea. It's just a surface skimmer. It's not a protein skimmer. It keeps the water absolutely crystal clear. I just use it on one of them because the other one kind of clashes with the rock work and it would kind of sit over where corals are going to be going. But one's just enough just to pull off any kind of dust, film, detritus that sits on the surface of the water or anything that's sitting on there. So it keeps it nice and clean. But something to consider when you're buying any hang-on back filter, whether it's this one or another one. And again, I've got the redundancy there. If one of these was ever to break or fail or for whatever reason, there's always going to be a filter on the back doing its job. Again, with the heaters, so 100 watt heater would be ideal for this aquarium, but I bought 2 50 watt heaters. Now this is kind of an in-between of doing nothing and buying an Inkbird for £30–35. If one of these fails off, the other one will limp along and keep the tank at a reasonable temperature, maybe a little bit shy of the optimum. If one of them fails on, well, the other one's going to have a thermostat and it will switch off, but if one of them fails on, and stays on, it's not going to be able to cook the tank, and I will notice if the temperature starts to rise to 27, 28 degrees, I'll be able to take it out and replace it and let the other one limp along and then buy a replacement. So they're £10 each, so it's £20, £18 with the discount from All Pond Solutions. The Wavemaker, it's in the tank, and I used it for cycling my rock for a few weeks actually, and it works great. But I haven't switched it on in the tank. The 2 hang-on back filters are actually producing a reasonable flow, but I probably will use it to kick out dead spots when I start to get more more livestock and more bioload in there and get things kicked up. And, but it's sitting in there just now. It's actually off. But they are £11.99 and you're £10.79 with a discount. So again, overall, and I'll just go into the carbon there. So I got 500 grams. Now for a tank, roughly looking online at sort of reef tanks, you're about 50 millilitres and 50 grams is about the same. So the volume per gram is about one to one. And the recommendation to use about 50 grams of carbon for 100 litres of water. So I'm going to use the 50 grams for my 90 litre tank. So that'll get me 10 months worth at least. And then I've got the carbon and floss pads that came with the filters anyway. So that'll easily do me 12 months. So that's £6. So you're talking £5.40 when they've got their discount on. So there's plenty there. This also comes with a mesh bag, which is what I'm using. I dumped the carbon into the plastic bag that it comes with, and then I use the mesh bag to put my 50 grams into one of the hang-on bags. So the next item here, I'm in two minds about. They're actually £2.74 with the postage there, not £1.55. You do get 5 of them, and why I'm in two minds is that they kind of they catch everything before it almost gets into the filter, which is good in a way, and it'll stop especially livestock that's getting sucked into the filters, which is the big benefit. But they're probably a wee bit awkward. Have to take the downpipe off the hang-on backs to clean it. So I might take them off in future and just let the sponges and the filters do it, because it's so easy to clean the hang-on backs. I just take the top off of them and just pull the sponges out, but there's very little comes out of them because most of it's caught in these already. But you get 5 of them as well, so there's a few spares. I did recommend to use the one with the 20 mil. The diagram's a bit wrong in here. I think it means 2 centimeters. It's actually 20 mil. They're actually a bit loose. I would go with the smaller one, and it is a bit of a struggle to get on, but then it stays. So I'm actually using the one with the 10 millimeter diameter hole, which is perfect. But we'll see how we go with those. Now I've got 4 meters by 50 centimeters of floss. Now each one of the sheets is 50 centimeters by a meter, and I needed about 7 centimeters wide. It's about 14 centimeters high for each of the floss pads. So I was getting 49 out of each of the 4 sheets. So it's basically, I need 4 for my 2 filters, and it was basically giving me 1 a week for 49 weeks. And then I've got a couple of pads that come with the filters anyway, so more than enough to do the year. I've only changed them once in the last month because I was kind of cycling and just added the fish for the first time. So it more than easily get me through a year with that. To start with, I did buy a cheap, I think it was a beta thermometer off of eBay, and it was a bit crap. The sucker was very poor and it kept coming off the glass. And now COVID restrictions have died down a bit. I got myself a Marina aquarium thermometer for the pricey sum of £2.75. Absolutely does the job. Sticks to the glass, hasn't come off once in the last couple of weeks. And it's perfect. So £2.75, cheap and cheerful, but it does the job. It just lets me know, and I check it every morning and every day when I finish work, just to make sure that it's fine. And you'll see a bag of Subway cookies just off to the side there, which I left in the presentation. Now what I used was the D&D Aquascape rocks. It was a 20 kilo box, which is about £90 everywhere you go. However, in the last few weeks, or the last 2 months, I've seen Arca, who are not new to reefing by any stretch. They have started producing this box here, My Reef Rocks, which is a mined aragonite rock. So it's a dry rock like any other, and I've seen it down to £57. I've seen it at maybe about 65, 70, but last couple of weeks there, I've seen it and £61.14. So you'll be able to do a little bit cheaper than what I did. So that's an option there, and it's absolutely more than enough rock. If 15 kilos is what I used, and it's a pretty heavy scape for the size of tank, you'll have some left over. So you could, if you can find some rock locally, that's maybe get yourself 10, 15 kilos, probably be enough. But I went a bit extra, and it gave me more to play about with the scape. And if there was any bits I couldn't really use or struggled to use, then they just got left in the box. I used Aquaforest Stonefix. I was trying to use the DD Aquascape putty, but I didn't really like it, and I'm struggling a bit. It was a bit slow to use, and I happened to have half a tub of this that came with a second-hand tank that I bought 6 months before, and I kind of raked about in that and realised I'd had half a tub of this. I pretty much used all of it. Well, it was only half a tub that was left, but I used it all, and it was great. It's just like cement. I used like a protein scoop and just put some in and a little bit of water, and then was using it to do it bit by bit. Bearded Reef, however, did do a video on using just cheap super glue and bicarbonate soda, so you could probably do it for less than £10. Although there is a couple of bits in my scape that are quite overhangy and quite heavy, so I did like the stone fix for that. It is really good stuff, but you could probably do it. It's probably a bit quicker to do it as well, that other way that Bearded Reef done. But check his video out as well. But this is the way I done it, and that's what I've used. The back of the tank is spray painted black with a Plastico super gloss black spray paint. I've done a video on that as well, so £4.98 there, nice and easy. This has changed from the video that I did on power, filtration and flow. I used a 6-gang multi-socket, and didn't really like that it was sitting flat behind the tank. If any water was ever to find its way across the back of the tank, all the plugs are there, whereas this is sitting, if the bottom of the extension was sitting on there, it could be swimming in a couple inches water and all the plugs are still above the top of the surface, the worktop, or the surface of the stand. So I kind of went with that. So that's £12.99, so it's a little bit more, but I think it's more practical, and it gives me some room to add other plugs later if I want to. And then also from B&M, I didn't buy these because I had loads of timers kicking about, but you can get two mechanical timers for £7 there for setting the par 38 lights that we'll be using. Now the coral sand, I used the AS6020 from Fishkeeper Scotland, which is also Maidenhead Aquatics. So I bought the 10 kilo bag for £17.50. However, I barely used 5 kilos. Maybe I added a little bit more after because I had it spare. So I've priced in for 3 2-kilo bags at £4.50 each. So you're talking £13.50 for your coral sand there. And it's quite a fine grade as well, so it's good for like the inverts and any fish that want to burrow in the sand or do anything like that. So I think it's kind of a good all round, rather than going for the chunkier stuff, which would maybe limit things like Nastaria snails or anything like that. Now again, I've done a video on this. I've got the polycarbonate twin wall lid and the clips. Obviously, just make sure you buy the clips for the 8mm glass if that's what the size of glass you've got, or just buy the appropriate ones. So I've got those there, nice and easy. And then my ATO, again, I've done a video on this. Needs to be an Evian water bottle to work with the threads on it, but it's perfect. I've got a 1.5 litre Evian bottle in there, which has lasted me 4 days of nice stable salinity with such a simple piece of kit, and I think it's perfect. And then my kind of test piece to this build is the 54 watt par 38 bulbs. Now these are suspended at the moment, at least a foot above the water to try and give me that spread and reduce any sort of spotlighting. And they've got a good mix of blues and whites in there. It is very much, when you look at it, there is a blue tinge to the light, but it does have a good, quite a heavy white to it. But the corals seem to be opening up under it, and they're fine, and they're opening up every day, and they look healthy still. They've only been a week or so, but again, it's very much a test. So I've got 2 of those for £32.50. And then I bought 2 bulb holders for just shy of £10 there, £9.95. So got those there. Now this becomes a bit sort of personal choice. Like I built a canopy of plywood, which is a bit of a test piece at the moment. I'll see how that goes and how I like it, and I might change it a little bit. But you could potentially use these bulb holders to suspend it from, if your tank's in an alcove, if you had a shelf above, or you could use some sort of wall bracket. Or build some sort of bracket that overhangs the tank, or you could build a canopy as well. Or the other option is not to buy these bulb holders and spend a little bit more on a gooseneck. So you get sort of aquarium ones, because these bulbs are quite heavy. The par 38s, or the ones that I've got anyway, for the size of them, they're fairly hefty bulbs. So rather than using these bulb holders, you can maybe get a couple of goosenecks that clip onto the back of the tank and just hang over. So it's kind of an all-in-one solution. So that may be a little bit more there, but depends on how you want to do it. I kind of wanted to stop the light from spreading out from the lights, because I'm just sitting, the tank's just out of view, and I don't want sort of the bright lights. There's still a lot of light comes off the tank even with the canopy on, but that's the way I've went with that one. So putting this all together, so you can see there, You overall on the all pond solution stuff, the first 5 items, you're saving about £16 with the 10% that I've included for, or the 10% discount. But obviously, if you decided to just buy it, as soon as possible, then you'd be an extra £16 there. But then we've got pre-sponges, the floss, the thermometer. You've got your live rock, your stone fix for doing your scape, back of the tank spray painted black with plastic coat, your sockets and timers for the lights, sand, your twin wall lid, your ATO, and then your lighting as well. So that all comes to £320.78. Now, this is kind of where I'm saying if you were to save £70 on this and get it down to 250, the rest of the kit's about £180. So you're even though you could try and save some money here, a lot of the maintenance kit, which you would still need for a smaller size of tank, maybe a third of your budget is going to be stuff that you'll buy anyway. So this is why there's a bit more economy in buying that slightly bigger tank. So a bit specific to my build was buying a poly rope, nylon rope is what I call it. So I'm using this to collect my natural seawater, which is what I'm using in the tank. So that's going to be using to drop a container off the end of the pier and retrieve it and collect my natural seawater. And for all sorts, including mostly your water changes, or maybe mixing water and things like that, or salt if you're going to use that. We've got 3 buckets here from Screwfix for £3.48. Went for 3, you could have just done 1 or 2, but I think 3 is kind of handy to put different things in, and when you're doing water changes, it's always handy to have a spare bucket. Now, Dr. Tim's, I got this from Swell UK, so it was £11.99, probably one of the cheapest places I found it. Definitely worked. I would cycle my rock with it, no problem. And then Dr. Tim's ammonium chloride for £2.50, which I got there. Now, the test kits is one where I've actually allowed more money than what I've spent on the build. I managed to get all these Salifert test kits that you see here for £41, mostly from Swell, and then I think the pH one was out of stock, so I had to get that off of eBay or something. But I think I bought it in January, and it was maybe just their prices changed quite a lot on Swell. They fluctuate, so it was good timing on my part. So instead, what I've done for this build, just for other people to follow, is I've allowed £57.54, which is what you see on the screen there, added up for the basically April 2021 prices is what I've been able to find. The other option is something that's maybe quite an easy way to do it, is buy the Red Sea Marine Care kit for £45. But all it doesn't have there is a phosphate test. So then obviously if you've got £57 there, you've got an extra £12 to go and buy a phosphate test from somewhere, whether it's Salifert or something else. But again, I use Salifert, that's what I quite like. I don't know what the Red Sea test's like, but that's another option if you want to use Red Sea instead. But you'll easily buy, and I think these are all the tests that you need to get you through your cycle and monitor your pH, your alkalinity, and phosphates. These are where you're going to have most of your challenges. And I think things like magnesium and calcium and other sort of trace elements, if you're doing good regular water changes, you're going to have plenty of those to manage soft corals and like macroalgae and things like that, and maybe some beginner harder corals as well, like SPS, LPS, or LPS really. But I think with good water changes, you're not going to need to be testing for those other elements until you kind of get further into the hobby and start to get a bit more technical on it. So I started off with the hydrometer, and it was about £8-9. And they have issues in terms of like what temperature the water is, and is there an air bubble on the needle that makes it float a bit higher, and it gives you the funny results. So I started looking around, and I ended up looking at one of these really cheap refractometers from China, and I've bought it. I've done a video on it as well. And what I would say, whether it was a really cheap refractometer like this one or a much more expensive Red Sea, is you need to be calibrating them every now and again just to make sure they are accurate, because they can fall out, they can fall out of calibration, and if you've got a Red Sea refractometer and it's not calibrated properly and it's giving you a false reading, then it's going to run you into massive issues. So I've bought the cheapest of the cheap of refractometers, which is the more accurate bit of kit, but also backing it up with calibration fluid. And I do have an aquamarine refractometer, which is an old second-hand one, which I've kind of been double checking things with as well, just to make sure I'm in the right place. But they're both reading the same, and I'm calibrating them. And I think for this, yes, spend the less money on a cheaper refractometer, but always, regardless of what refractometer you buy, is get the calibration liquid, just to keep it correct. I personally, I've bought some Vitalis marine pellets, so I've got there's the standard ones, and then there's a platinum one, which are slightly different options. There's pretty decent reviews on it. I've been using it. My clownfish absolutely love it. They go wild for it every morning. And then I bought just a fine fish net as well there, just for catching. It's more for actually putting the fish into the tank when you're acclimating them and just scooping them out and putting them into the tank. I have no intention of catching the fish at any time any soon. But it's always good to have a net. Now, the next slide does need a bit of explanation. I bought 2 of these 30-litre storage containers. So there's 2 of them for £6, as you can see there on the label. It's a potential as a QT tank, a quarantine, and you could potentially steal one of the hang-on backs, and it will fit on this container. And it's quite good for if you want to mix any salt water or anything like it in that, and it's good for storing all my kit. So there, I've got those as an option. A potential little hospital or QT tank, and then I've got 2 of the 1 litre measuring jugs at £1 each, so, or 99 pence, which is ideal for if you're ever wanting to do any sort of dosing or measuring out an additive or something that you're adding to the tank, whether it be a treatment or something just to benefit the tank, then it's handy to have that. Now, what I've not been doing a huge amount of at the moment is dipping my corals, because it started with dry rock and I didn't add any live rock, obviously, because it's all dry. But some of the coral frags I'm getting are coming with cool bits of life on it, which I'm wanting to introduce into my tank. So I'm kind of been inspecting my corals so far, and then adding them into the tank. A little bit of risk there, I know, but the plan is in future is to dip the corals in Dettol. Now I think it's 0.5 millilitres per litre. Aaron's Aquarium's done videos on it as well. I'll do some videos later on just to show you how I'm going to do it as well. It'll be much the same as that, but it's just nice to see someone else do it before you take the plunge. And there's lots of people in the forums talk about it as well. So, I mean, that's £3.50 a bottle, and that'll last me for a few years in terms of dipping corals. So loads of that there, and it's a nice budget alternative to your more expensive dips that you get. And then big thing, thanks to Bearded Reef on this one, I'd bought a couple of really cheap tubes of Superglue at B&M, and apparently if you were to use that under the water, it just turns to liquid and it's a nightmare to use. Whereas the Gorilla Superglue gel is the stuff you want to be using to be gluing your frags onto your rockwork underwater. So £4.79 there for that. And then I did buy this on eBay for about £6. It was the Interpet Prime Gravel Cleaner. I think it's the small. And however, when I'm getting out and about now, the COVID restrictions are starting to reduce. Fishkeeper Scotland have exactly the same piece of kit, which they call Aquamanta, but it's the same kit, it's the same packaging, it's the same everything, but it's £4.99, so you can get that locally rather than going on to eBay. But I've got the same one there, so I've got the one on the right hand side, but it's available in your local shops. The next bit of kit I got was the Toonsy Care magnet. You could go out and spend £8 or £9 on a really cheap algae scraper, or even maybe less than that from a local shop. I did buy one that was much longer and had a blade on the end, and you just kind of use it to scrape down, but you have to be kind of inside the tank. And I decided against that and went for the Toonsy Care. I've not actually used it yet because I'm just letting the tank cycle and it's starting the ugly stage. It's a bit of food, any algae growing is a bit of food for the pods and the cleanup crew that I'm starting to add. So I'll let them have that algae just now, but there's not really much on the glass to speak of, to be fair. There's 1 or 2 brown spots, but it's a great piece of kit. Plenty of people have reviewed it and I've no concern that it won't do the job. So that's probably one of the more expensive bits of kit, but it's definitely worth it, I think. Something cheap and cheerful is a turkey baster. It's great for blasting detritus off your rockwork or your corals. It'd be good for feeding corals if you're going to use any coral food in the future. And things like if you're going to dip your corals in a jug, it's good for giving them a blast with the little jets of water used in the turkey baster. So that's something there that's quite useful. Also bought 1 kilogram of citric acid. Now that is instead of vinegar for cleaning your equipment, because vinegar can be a little bit aggressive on some bits of kit. So I bought this. You're talking about 50 grams per litre as a cleaning solution. So out of this, I'll get 20 litres. So that'll easily do me the year for cleaning just my pumps and my. Occasionally give the heaters a clean and the power head that's in there, or the Wavemaker. And then one thing I was planning to buy a few of these a long time ago when COVID was kicking off, is 25 litre drums. Now you can get those for sort of £1, £2, £3. I'd seen quite a few in Scotland as well, which is where I am, but I didn't go searching for them at the time, but I'd seen them for that similar sort of price as well, to be fair, up here. Now, because of COVID, I wasn't going to travel just across the Forth Bridge. It wasn't particularly far away, but you weren't meant to leave your council area, which I didn't. I'm doing that, which I shouldn't. I literally didn't leave my council area. So I happen to have some 10 litre Adblue containers, which I've got a photo of a couple there in my boot, which was great for collecting my natural seawater, which is what I'm using. And I did actually buy myself an RODI unit just for convenience with COVID and trying to get into my local fish keeper, which there was queues because it was Dobies. So it was a bit of a nightmare. So I went with that, and I got an RODI unit, but I've allowed a couple of £1 there just to buy a 25 litre container so that you can buy RODI water. So my local LFS charges £3.50 for 25 litres. So you want a 25 litre container rather than going in with 2 or 3 10 or 5 litres or whatever. And I reckon you use a couple of litres, maybe a little bit more a week. So I've allowed for 100 litres of RODI, which would be £14 across the year. You might need a little bit more, but obviously just see how you go. I think this should just about cover you. And to be fair, for the first month or two, I didn't need any RODI because I was cycling in a container with a lid. But I think that 100 litres should cover you. And then a reef tank's not a reef tank without copepods. So again, you can get copepods for about £3 on eBay, but I went for this one because it was basically buy one get one free, although slightly more expensive. So £4.95 there for 210ml packs of copepods. Now I went with the mangroves and more one because they were able to tell me it was Tigriopus copepods that they were supplying, whereas one or two others on eBay didn't know what species it was that they were supplying. And that's pretty much the whole kit. This is a photo I took very early on. I'd bought all the kit and hadn't done anything with it yet. You see the hydrometer in there, that's still in the box, it's never been used. And it was the beta thermometers there in the jug next to the hydrometer, which was a bit terrible, to be honest. And so I bought the Pets at Home one that we saw earlier. So that's pretty much everything there. There's a few things not in the shot that you can't see, but all of that together, I am 28 pence over £500. So again, if you've got all the kit there, everything on that left-hand column is, I've done videos on all of that already. The bulk of the right-hand column, which is kind of your maintenance equipment, I've done videos on most of that as well, and I'm starting to use the different things. So the only thing I'll maybe do a little video on at some point is maybe the Tunsey Nano, using things like the citric acid and little bits and pieces, but they're pretty much all covered now. And there's little things like the jugs as well. I'm not going to do videos on that, but it's just little bits and pieces that are really, really useful. One thing I haven't shown in there is maybe a couple of meters of airline tubing, which I've been using to acclimate the corals. But again, that'll only cost you, I think it's like £1 a meter, or probably less actually. So there's a little thing to add on. And the other things that aren't included is the hood, which you may want to hang the bulbs from something above the tank, or use a gooseneck, or do it differently. But I've just done a DIY hood for mine. And obviously the stand, you might have a bit of furniture already that suits, or you might have a stand, or you might want to do something DIY. And again, it's a bit of furniture in your house, so it's kind of personal choice. And then after that, it's all up to yourself. I'm using some macroalgae. I've got my 2 clowns already, so your fish there, your cleanup crew, whatever you decide you want to use, and then your corals. And again, you could spend as little as you want, or you could, my 2 clownfish, which are absolutely stunning, were £30, but you could go and spend £500, £600, £700, £800 on a really nice pair of morph clownfish of different varieties. So that again, that's not included, but this is everything you need to run the tank for a whole year, or at least that's how I plan to do it, and that's going to be the attempt. I'll keep updating you guys on the tank as we go, and this is just a few pictures from the tank in the last few weeks. So that's my clownfish there. I've got Rhodactis, and I've got a few other mushrooms there as well. I've got some clove polyps and GSP and some zoas in the middle picture there. What I did do as well, I bought a blue, a full, I think it was a par 38 bulb with only blues, which is all 450 nanometer blue lights, just to take some pictures. Now that's one thing that maybe the par 38 bulbs miss, is that they do have a mix of blues in, but they also have the whites. So for getting that nice fluoresce and taking pictures, you do want the blues, but obviously they'll grow fine and they'll still look great under the white lights, which is what most of these pictures are, apart from the one of the clove polyps and the two with the mushrooms. But yeah, that's one thing. But so far, I mean, these corals have all been in a good week or so, so they're all looking good under the par 38 lights. I've got no issues with that. So that's it, guys. That's the 20-gallon budget nano reef, and it's everything a beginner needs to run a reef tank for a whole year. And I'd just like to say thank you to the new followers. I've got a few new subscribers in the last week or two, getting close to the 50 subscriber mark now. But keep following me along, see how the tank develops, and see how the corals get on under the par 38s. And give me a little comment below. Is there any basic items that I've maybe not included for that a beginner would need? Is there anything I've missed? I think I've managed to get it all. But yeah, if there's any important bits of kit that a reefer really needs, then pop a comment below. But give me a little like and subscribe, guys, and follow me along, and I'll give you more updates on the tank as the year goes. And don't forget to hit subscribe.